Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the global audience we have joining us today, and welcome to today's kickoff session of Stonebranch Online 2022, our 6-week virtual education forum designed to help you evolve your IT automation and orchestration program. I'm Lauren Tanzini, Marketing Manager at Stonebranch, and I will be your moderator. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers prepared for you today, but before we begin, let's cover a few logistics. If you have any questions at any time during the event, just click the Q&A tab on your dashboard and type your question in. We won't be able to answer the questions during the session, but we'll do our best to communicate the answers directly afterwards. You'll receive an email later today, which contains the link to the recording of this event, so you can rewatch at your convenience. With that said, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Giuseppe Damiani, CEO of Stonebranch. Giuseppe is the first of 3 presenters today, and he will provide opening remarks. Then he will hand over to Stonebranch CTO Peter Balliet, who will offer his insights into the latest trends and transformations within IT automation industry. Following Peter is Colin Coxidge, Director of Product Management at Stonebranch, who will be giving exciting features planned for Stonebranch Universal Automation Roadmap. Let's go ahead and get started. Giuseppe, take it away.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stonebranch Online. I know that there are a lot of online events going on, and I really wanted to thank you for joining ours. I also wanted to take this opportunity to thank everybody at Stonebranch who are the driving force behind our growth. Today and over the next 6 weeks, we will be talking about orchestrating the universe. Orchestrating the universe for us means orchestrating any application or platform, whether it is on-prem, distributed, or in the cloud. We have some great speakers coming up, Peter Balliet and Colin Coxidge, which will be talking about the evolution of our platform. Once again, I wanted to thank you very much for joining our event, and I personally look forward to helping you orchestrate your needs in the future.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Balliet, and I'm Chief Technology Officer here at Stonebranch. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the trends we're seeing in the industry, how those trends are impacting automation tools, and how our products are evolving to meet these new demands. But before we get started, I'm going to play a quick video to tee up our discussion.
Your IT environment is on-prem and in the cloud, which is great because you need both. But automating the workloads, data ops pipelines, or DevOps processes with one or the other is a very manual, disconnected, and time-consuming process, and isn't cutting it. You need both to be in tune. And that's where Stonebranch comes in, enabling you to conduct and orchestrate the automation in your hybrid IT environment, to synthesize your siloed IT processes with infinite integrations, drag and drop workflows, and centralized control in real time at any scale. Now, how does that sound? We're Stonebranch, offering real-time hybrid IT automation for whatever comes next.
We've been on this journey from on-premise, what we call hybrid IT. And hybrid IT is systems not just being on-prem, but also in the cloud. But in addition, new types of systems being developed on top of cloud and cloud-native services, also integrated in with SaaS applications. What's really driving this is the ease of access and low cost and scalability of the cloud, which is really enabling groups within companies outside of the IT organization to build new applications and provide new capabilities to them. How we view it is really in 3 different areas. There's infrastructure as a service, and infrastructure as a service is really just kind of lifting and shifting existing applications or deploying new applications into the cloud, taking advantage of their elastic infrastructure in terms of compute, storage, and network. We also see a lot of companies moving data into the cloud that they're collecting from all of their systems because of all of the cloud-native services around data and analytics. The other area is platform as a service, and platform as a service is really these cloud-native services that provide technology for specific purposes but really on a way you can use them for just what you need and very user-friendly. So that this is the area where we see a lot of groups and teams within organizations taking advantage. And the third is software as a service, which is really having SaaS companies do all of the back-end operations and infrastructure. And really all you have to worry about is using the application and not having to worry about all of the operational aspects of it. So this is an area that we see evolving very, very quickly in the next couple of years. One thing we did was we took a survey this past year of a wide group of users across a lot of different companies to see how much they are into hybrid IT. And what we found was that 30% are still on-prem only and are still primarily using their systems on-prem. But really 23% are cloud only or have a strategy to be cloud only. But by and large, 50% are in this hybrid IT world already, really having their on-premise systems, maybe hosting some of them in the cloud, but also probably taking advantage and building new applications in the cloud. What was even more interesting was we asked how many are using more than one cloud service provider. And a cloud service provider is companies like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform. And what we found was over 90% are using more than one cloud provider. Some of them are using more than two cloud providers. And again, this I think is a demonstration of the decision-making within companies not being IT-driven, but being organizational or team-driven, using different cloud providers for their specific needs. What this is doing is really, creating a complex landscape. We used to be just workload automation, which was in the data center, and maybe we had a couple of connections outside of the data center to SaaS systems or cloud service providers. The way we view Universal Automation Center now, UAC, is really supporting a much more complex and diverse system landscape. And these are made up of everything that you're doing in the cloud, whether it be hosting in the cloud or taking advantage of cloud native services, but also SaaS vendors where you might have some of your business systems and data within SaaS systems. And in addition, you also are integrating in with suppliers and customers who are also in this hybrid landscape. And so the automation really needs to span all of these different areas and may even span into your customers or your supplier systems too, especially when you look at data transfers. So, but this complex landscape brings up a number of challenges. We see a lot of different types of automation now, a lot of different tools. And when you have a lot of these tools, your operational costs and just trying to manage it becomes complex. You've got your inbuilt schedulers that are part of your applications. You've got open source schedulers like Apache Airflow that you're using for specific business purposes. All the cloud service providers really have their own automation and automation tools built in, or tools that you would use that are specific to them. And then you've got your legacy schedulers and workload automation tools. So this is creating a very diverse and complex tool set. So our goal is to really try to simplify that. And the way we're doing that is really looking at UAC is how can we provide a single orchestration layer across all these different areas that can provide a single pane of glass and a centralized view over all of your automation. We want to avoid using vendor-specific tools so that you can use one tool like UAC to be able to integrate across cloud providers. We want people to leverage their existing investments in automation by being able to integrate into all these automation tools as well. So, the way we look at UAC today is more as a platform. And what do we mean as a platform? A platform is something that you can build on top of. A platform is something that can integrate into a diverse set of tools and applications. And a platform is also something that supports multiple different business domains. So it's not just that we support workload automation. We want to be specific for different business purposes like data analytics, data pipelines, DevOps, where you're building new applications and build test environments, and then also infrastructure, where you're trying to provision infrastructure in different types of areas. The other thing a platform does is provide a common layer of capabilities as well. So when we talk about the common pieces, it's analytics that you're collecting from your automation to help you to improve your automation processes. It's visibility, providing a single dashboard where you can get a view of all your automation processes. And it's also being able to provide a development layer where you can extend the product to be able to integrate into a lot of different types of systems and tools. But integration is key. When we take a platform approach and when we look at this complex landscape, we have to integrate into a very diverse set of systems and technologies. So one of the capabilities that we're going to talk about is how are we doing this? And when we look at it, we really look at it in terms of business domain, areas that you want to integrate to. We've always done very well in the jobs and workloads, and we have a very robust and strong capability here. But as we talk about integrations, we're looking at them across a number of areas. The first one is cloud, so being able to very easily interoperate with all the cloud service providers out there, like AWS and Azure. From an infrastructure standpoint, infrastructure has a lot of different automation tools as well to configure servers and to deploy infrastructure. You've got Ansible, Puppet, Chef, that's very popular out there, and we have customers who are integrating into those tools. And then you have DevOps. So in DevOps, you've got development pipelines, but then you also need to provision systems to be able to test and develop as well as deploy to production. So we're helping automate across those tools as well. And one of the biggest areas is data ops. So when you look at ETL and big data, this is one of the most diverse landscapes because of how broad the analytical spectrum is in terms of what you can do with data these days. And a lot of our integrations are focused on supporting these data ops and data pipeline capabilities. And then from an enterprise system standpoint, we've always integrated into some of the most widely used enterprise systems, but we're also looking at a lot of different SaaS integrations to Salesforce, Workday, and a number of these other enterprise systems that are going to SaaS. So the platform approach is really helping us support this diverse landscape of different business domains. We have a few different strategic focus areas that I'm going to talk about. The first one is what we call integrate and orchestrate. And I just talked about integration, and you're going to hear us more use the term orchestration now when we talk about automation, because we are trying to orchestrate across that hybrid IT landscape and then connect into all these different tools that you might be using for lower level automation. The integration, we have the integration hub, which is a way where we can take integrations and provide them to our customers, easy access to download and integrate into their local environments. We're going to talk about building extensions with our SDK and development platform. And then we're going to talk about new capabilities with webhooks, which is really enabling what we call event-driven automation. And then we've always have our agents, which help us reach deep into the on-premise world, as well as now looking at being able to integrate our agents into containers as they run in some of these container orchestration softwares like Kubernetes. Event-driven automation. So we're in 7.2 release, we had our universal events come out, and in 7.3 we have webhooks. And we're using both these technologies to do what we call event-driven automation. And this is instead of doing things like polling, so there's a number of things that kind of poll, we really want to move away from polling and get into event-driven. And we do that a number of ways in a number of different areas. With the UAC integrations, the integrations that you build can send events that can go up into UAC from the agents and be able to trigger automation. But also, more importantly, is webhooks. And webhooks is a common been becoming more popular way for systems that are out there on the cloud or as SaaS to be able to trigger events in other systems and send a generic payload. So in 7.3, we are able to receive webhooks, filter them, and then trigger a wide range of automation with that. And then you've always been able to do the REST API, so to call our REST API directly. And we've also got integrations into this cloud service providers where they can send events into UAC via webhooks or via HTTP calls. And this is very much a publish and subscribe type of capability that we've built into UAC. To kind of go through a tangible example, this is an event-driven automation flow. So unlike what you're maybe used to seeing in UAC, which is to create a workflow, this is an example of how you might do that just with events. And so the example we have here is a file coming into Azure Blob Storage, which is where you can store data, store files. And when it gets in there, Azure creates an event that sends a webhook over to UAC. UAC receives that webhook. It has very advanced filtering capability to see what it should do with that webhook, and it creates a universal event and then triggers where we're going to trigger that file to be transferred over to AWS for data analytics. And so our inter-cloud file data transfer extension is going to get an automation trigger, and that's going to trigger the file to be sent over to AWS S3. So that file is going to be transferred. When it gets to AWS, it's going to generate its own event and webhook back into UAC saying, all right, I got this file transferred here. And UAC is going to get that event, that webhook, filter it, and then trigger an automation to be done. And this is going to load that data into Redshift. So we have a connector to AWS Redshift to load a file from S3. And so that's going to load the file into AWS Redshift. That, again, will send an event back to UAC saying that the file was loaded correctly and finished. And then UAC is going to take that event, and somebody triggered a notification to be sent out to Microsoft Teams. And so that will trigger our extension to Microsoft Teams to send an event to let people know that that file was successfully loaded into Redshift, and they can do analytics or maybe go look at the data once it's in AWS Redshift. So again, you can do this with a workflow, but this example was really just to show how you can do event-driven automation and hook things into different things that might be coming into UAC from the external landscape. Cybersecurity is becoming an increasingly important topic, as we know, and our roadmap has a lot of capabilities that we're coming out with in 7.3 as well as an ongoing basis. The trends here that are really driving this is with this hybrid IT landscape and everybody doing things in the cloud, you have a lot more what we call credentials needed to be able to access all of these systems. And so you're getting a high volume of username, passwords, API keys that have to be used with automation. You're also seeing cybersecurity threats and new threats come as people are doing new things in the cloud. Moving data all around this hybrid IT landscape, there's privacy concerns. So you're having to watch all of your data and being very careful about where you put it, especially if it's sensitive data. And then there's new authentication capabilities that have been deployed so that you don't have to have username and passwords. You have a lot of more sophisticated ways. So these are really driving a number of capabilities that we have in UAC and that you'll see coming out in our roadmap. The first is secrets management tools. So a secret management tool essentially eliminates the need to store credentials locally, whether they be username, password, API keys, certificates. UAC can integrate into these secrets management tools and look up these values real time so that they don't have to be stored within UAC and they don't have to be exposed to individuals. Data transfers, so I'm going to be getting into a lot of the data transfer mechanisms that we have, but we're really looking at what we call data observability, which is really keeping track of where all the data is being moved in your hybrid IT landscape. Our SaaS customers, we've deployed AI cloud security platforms in our SaaS environments that's constantly monitor network traffic and logons and will notify us if there's any suspicious activity that happens. And then any development we do for the core, not just for the core product, but also for our integrations and extensions, go through code scanning for security as well as vulnerability testing. But the key thing that we're trying to do is really try to eliminate the need of credentials having to be stored in UAC. So as customers implement these more modern secrets management tools, as well as some of these new authentication capabilities, you're going to be able to take advantage of those within UAC. From a development platform standpoint, we're creating a SDK that can be used not just by us, and it's a tool that we used internally, but it's also a tool that we want our partners and customers to use so that they can build their own integrations and extensions. And the whole goal here is to make it very simple and agile for customers and partners to do that. And we see this working two ways. We use this to develop these integrations, and then we have put these on the integration hub right now where you can download them. But where this will be enabled is in UAC itself, where through the user interface, you'll be able to search and download these integrations very easily. And so you'll be able to very rapidly go and include any new integration and kind of what we call future-proofing yourself to where you may not need a certain integration today, but you may need it down the road when you might use a new cloud service provider or new SaaS application. But you will be able to put these directly in UAC yourself. So being able to build these yourselves and then deploy them in UAC very easily. And the approach we're taking to this is really that you can interact and build these within an IDE, and that IDE can work directly with your UAC instance. So right now, we're really focused on Visual Studio Code. So for anybody out there who develops in Visual Studio Code, you'll be very familiar with how this works. But you can search for our plugin for Visual Studio Code and then download that within your IDE. And with that plugin, you'll be able to access templates. There's a lot of debug features, a lot of code highlighting, and then you'll be able to deploy and get results back from that extension running in UAC, as well as being able to run it locally without UAC. So again, this is really enabling this rapid development and ease of use for building integrations and extensions. And then jobs as code, we see a lot of people asking for, hey, I want to manage my automation from a code level in a version control tool. And so we're also enabling what we call jobs as code. And you'll see integrations into some of the more popular version control systems today. Right now, we've got integrations to GitLab, GitHub, and Azure DevOps. And this can go both ways. So you can take what you've got configured in UAC for certain types of objects and download them and initialize what they call a repository in these systems, and then manage it there from a code level and use your IDE or the tools that are provided on these platforms to edit. And then anytime there's changes, we have webhooks that do change triggers up into UAC. So as you change things in a version control system, it'll get migrated up to UAC. And then from UAC, if you change it in UAC, it can migrate those changes down to the version control system as well. So it's looking for any changes that happen to those objects on UAC, and then that'll get moved down to these version control systems. Really enabling people who like to work in that type of jobs as code environment. And then we also have to have, automation has the same pattern that we see in software development, which is going through different types of landscapes for develop, testing, and then ultimately deploying it to production. And we want to enable this as well with jobs as code. So you've always been able to do this through the web UI by moving your bundles from one environment to the other. And then you're going to be able to do this from jobs as code as you have your branches. And if you're familiar with how branching works in these version control systems, as you have your develop branch and your test branch and your production branch, as you merge these into your different branches, those will kind of move up into UAC, and you can move this automation to different environments. So really supporting this automation DevOps lifecycle management. Another strategic focus area is self-service. So what we're trying to do here is enable other users of automation, kind of what we call citizen automators, access to UAC and the automation. Traditionally, we've really had IT ops people use use UAC, but we see growing the demand for all these other users as well. So things that we're going to be focused on is a self-service portal where you just want to trigger automation. We want to enable integration into different IM channels where you can easily get status or trigger things within UAC. And then ITSM, IT service management tools like Jira, ServiceNow, Zendesk, being able to trigger things that happen from those tools to take some action based on some IT tickets that that might be being processed. And then, like we just talked about, from an IDE development perspective in the jobs as code. An example that we see being used a lot is really with these instant messaging channels, because this is where we see citizen automators, people who don't know the technical details behind what's happening with the automation, but still want to interact with the automation. And so what we have is using our APIs and our webhooks, we're going to come, what we're just seeing is with Slack specifically, being able to show agent status, show a job status, run a particular UAC report, run an ad hoc job or workflow. And then if something fails, being able to trigger and say, hey, why don't you go try that again, or rerunning things. So really enabling this very easy ability to interact with UAC through IM tools. Another strategic focus area is data pipeline orchestration. So this is kind of what I talked about earlier in terms of us really focusing on certain business domains that we see can get a lot of benefit from UAC as an automation tool. And a lot of customers have shown us what they can do with UAC in this data pipeline area. But as I talked about before, there's a lot of different tools when you talk about data analytics. So one of the values we do is really to provide a centralized control and visibility of these complex data pipelines. We want, you have a lifecycle management. So just like automation, these data pipelines still have a dev, test, production type of DevOps lifecycle that we support. And then when we're moving all of this data around, so data lineage and data traceability are things that we provide capability around. And this is kind of known at a higher level as data observability, so that you can track all your data throughout the pipeline and where you're storing it. And then these data pipelines are becoming production critical. So people are thinking them more as real-time systems like you do your enterprise systems. So anytime they fail or some data didn't get received, there needs to be alerts and corrective action taking place. And so UAC, what we've traditionally done is being able to do that, being able to notify people, and then people take some corrective action within UAC. And as an example, most data pipelines have the same high-level structure. You start with your data sources on the left, which is your data coming in. The data integration is all about how you mash that data together, how you might change that data to provide the data set that you're going to store. And then you've got the storage, which is really your classical relational databases or more data lake type structures. And then analyze is where you're doing your analytics, whether they be data science based or some other type of just normal BI star schema data warehouse structures. And then on the delivery side, this is not just UIs, but it could be reports, it could be APIs that get access to get some data analytics out. But they generally follow this similar type of flow. The challenge, again, is there's so many different tools in each of these areas, such as open source, third-party tools. And what we're doing is integrating into all of these primary tools as well as ones that we see our customers need so that you can get that orchestration layer across each of these. And again, treating them like mission-critical systems. Another strategic focus area is move data anywhere. So we see that transferring data across this hybrid IT landscape is becoming very, very critical for business processes as well as what we just talked about, data analytics. So we want to facilitate being able to move data anywhere across your hybrid IT landscape. We want to provide what we call data observability, meaning being able to track all of the necessary data for compliance or governance or just traceability to where that data is going and who's using it. And then combine that within an overall workflow of automation. And this is not just within your hybrid IT landscape, but also with your business partners. And so we want to take a kind of overall view and provide capabilities across each of these areas. And if you look at it, on the left side, you've got on-premise. And, we had our universal data mover, which was what we primarily used to migrate data on-premise. But now we're seeing people want to move data through hybrid cloud. So moving data from on-premise to cloud, but then inter-cloud. So this may be like I showed in the event-driven automation, where you're moving it from AWS to Azure or vice versa, because one of the cloud providers may have a capability that you want to use on that data or a better service. And then at the bottom, we have business to business, which is really going back and forth between your business partners. And so each of these different areas are areas that we're covering with our tools that we have for moving data. We have a new tool called UDMG, which is about managed file transfer. So this is doing your traditional file transfers mainly through SFTP or also industry-specific protocols between you and your business partners. And the other area that we have is the intercloud. So we have our intercloud file data transfer, which isn't just with the major cloud providers, but also all of these different things like Google Drive or Box or Dropbox. So it really enables you to move data around to all of these different sources, as well as, so when you combine all these, you're able to go from your on-premise and then anywhere you might want to outside of your company, whether it's in the cloud or to another business partner. The last area I'd like to talk about is mainframe modernization. This topic is not a new topic, and it's been happening for a while. And it's typically with customers who want to get off of the mainframe and go towards more newer applications and newer infrastructure. But there's a lot of companies that have a big investment in their mainframes and don't necessarily want to get off, but still want to modernize and take advantage of the cloud. So a lot of the cloud service providers are being able to emulate running the JCL jobs in the cloud. One aspect of that, of course, is the schedules, and the schedules also have to be pulled over to the cloud side. So several have approached us to help with that because of our experience in doing this when customers migrate to the UAC product. And UAC is also capable of running both in the cloud as well as on the mainframe side on premise. The other thing that we have is a conversion tool that helps convert the JCL definitions as well as the schedules from where they exist now over into the UAC system. And there's a lot of logic built up and a lot of experience that lowers the cost, reduces the time and risk associated with these types of conversions. The other aspect that we provide is, since we've done a lot of these projects, we have a migration methodology about how to convert the data, as well as services to help customers do it in a very short time frame. And if you look at what this looks like with our Express conversion tools, you have both the JCL definitions, which need to be adjusted and values changed as they get migrated over to the cloud emulation software, as well as the schedules need to be converted over into UAC. And our Express conversion tool sits in the center and provides a very easy way to do this. And then once they all exist in the cloud, UAC can trigger the jobs to run in the emulated software that exists on the cloud. So that wraps up my session here with the keynote. Thank you for listening. I encourage you, I touched a little bit on all of these new things that we're focusing on and providing. There's going to be sessions on these different areas, and I encourage you, if you want to go deep in these, please look up those sessions and attend them. They should be very informative. And with that, I will pass it over to Colin, who's going to cover some of our new capabilities as well as upcoming things in our roadmap. Colin?
Thank you, Peter. So this part of the presentation, we're going to look at what Peter's been talking about in terms of the industry trends and how that translates into what we're doing in the product. So, the features we delivered and the roadmap and the strategy we have going forward. But I'd kind of like to start by talking about sort of the recent survey, the survey that was done earlier this year with the IEEE organization, looking at the global state of IT automation. And there's a few takeaways that resonate very much with myself and I think the product group here at Stone Branch. In terms of that, what we're seeing is that hybrid IT is being massively adopted and implemented by everybody. Also, we're seeing the focus on orchestration as being the next phase of automation. And what that really means for Stone Branch is that, from our point of view, one of the key things that we need to do, and we've had a strategy of this over the last few years, but we're going to continue that strategy, is to deliver integrations so that you can automate and orchestrate the various infrastructure and application components you have in your environments, okay? So we'll talk a little bit before I get into the roadmap and the future strategy and how that maps out and plays is, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that have come in the product over the last year. We have a process and a cycle of doing 2 releases a year. We do one in the first quarter and one in the third quarter. So we have one that's just come out. But, this year we've done a major refresh of the user experience, the user interface in the product. And we are going to move that forward iteratively as we go through, making tweaks and changes to that, as we learn, as we get, reports and feedback from the user community. One of the things that hybrid IT is driving is secrets management. So organizations are looking to centralize the management of all the passwords, all the keys, all the tokens, all those things that they need. And these are important when we get into automating and orchestrating is how we access those application and infrastructure components with passwords, keys, and tokens. So we're building integrations into those third-party secrets management tools, and we'll see the first pass of those integrations into the credentials component within the controller, coming in the 7.3 release, which has just been released, okay? Integrations is orchestration, right? Orchestration equals integrations, whichever way you want to say that. It's very important that we continue to deliver quick and quality integrations to the infrastructure components, the application components, the software as a service components, the platform as a service components that you consume so that you can manage your hybrid IT environments. Something that's going to be, I think, a very big player in the future for us is a new feature we've just released in the product, which is an inbound webhook. Sounds very simple, but effectively, it does a couple of things for us. It means that we now have an inbound integration point that requires no polling, therefore no cost for you in terms of going out and polling infrastructure or applications, that pretty much allows us to build or for you to monitor events on your whole infrastructure, on all your applications, without us having to build separate components for each one of those. We'll see some demos of that, and I highly recommend that if you haven't already signed up for the UAC 7.3 overview, that you do that, because we'll have some demos and some different scenarios about how powerful this feature is and some of the things that you can use it for. And I think you'll see some benefit in that. Okay. We've done a lot of work in the workload analytics, and that'll continue, but we've added in the new release some changes to the way we've done critical pathing. And again, we'll highlight and demonstrate that as we go through the UAC 7.3 overview later in the series. Okay. Also, we're seeing quite an uptake on people running our agent in containers, whether that's, Docker containers or whether they're using Red Hat's OpenShift or Kubernetes in various flavors, Azure, AWS, the EKS stuff, all of that. We've basically made some updates which make security and controlling that a little easier from the management and admin point of view, okay? And of course, we're in the business of automation, workload automation, our workflow engine. So there's a lot of enhancements there. And again, you'll get a full list of those if you come to the overview session later. Okay. One thing also on the secret side is we've added support for personal access tokens for our APIs. So no longer just basic authentication. It gives you some advantages there in terms of how you can use and consume those APIs and authenticate them Okay. And of course, automation scheduling enhancements, that's our bread and butter. We're going to continue to bring those to the market and do those as we go through. And again, on the subject of, and I keep harping about this, orchestration equals integration, integration equals orchestration, is the ability for us and for you and for our partners to build and deliver these integrations is key. To do that quickly and to do that in a robust fashion is key. So the software development kit and the visual code extensions that we have are being enhanced. There's a lot of nice new features coming in that just to make that whole process of developing these much, much easier, much, much faster in the environment. So on the UI side, if you haven't seen it already, it's really a big change. We've made it a little more modern. We simplified the user experience. There was a lot of process went into the design of this. We used an external consulting company that helped us looking at what best practices there were. But we also involved the various stakeholders we have, both internally and externally. So various different classes of user within our own organization and various customer groups and different types of users within those customer groups who gave us feedback of the things that they liked, the things that they didn't like in the user interface, and we came up with a new design which we implemented. And we'll see more things go forward in that as we go through. But hopefully, you'll agree and enjoy that user experience. Once you get the ability to move that. But one of the pieces of feedback that we've had is that one of the things that we removed was the ability to set the banner color. Largely because technically the banner actually got removed from the product, but that's, I guess, a small item and something we wouldn't quibble about. So we've added that back, and that really gives you the ability to clearly delineate the different environments you have within your infrastructure, so your dev, your prod, your test environment, so you can clearly see which ones you're logged onto by having different colors to highlight that. So that's back in the 7.3 release. So I think some of our users will be glad and happy to see that as we go through. Okay. Something else that's a big headline thing, and that is that we've introduced a new component this year. And don't be fooled by the name. This is 100% a Stone Branch developed product. Stone Branch was really one of the first organizations to recognize the intrinsic relationship between moving data and processing data. When we were back in the work automation days, it was very much we viewed moving and processing the whole from creation to consumption of your files was part of the process that we were responsible for managing. So what this component adds is to that capability to manage all the different aspects of lifecycle with files, whether they're being transferred to and from external partners, third party, your business partners, your suppliers, your customers, whoever it is, whether it's internal file transfers, whether it's the cloud, and combinations of all the above. So the Universal Data Mover Gateway is a new component which takes care of that third-party external file transfers, and it integrates with all the other solutions we have for managing internal file transfers, for managing transfers to and from your on-premise to the cloud, between the different cloud environments you have, and between all of those and the different customers, suppliers, partners that you have. So again, very important part within our infrastructure. We're very excited to have that as a Stone Branch built component, and you'll see that enhanced as we go forward, and you'll see sessions describing what the features are and the capabilities and the benefits of this are as we go forward in the Stone Branch Online series and the Stone Branch Online sessions. Okay. So looking at the roadmap, and as a product manager, we're very reticent to really talk in detail about very long, lengthy, far out, futuristic roadmaps. We like to keep it short, right? So, typically when you get roadmap presentations from us, we're talking about the next 3 to 4 releases, okay? And we'll talk fairly high level. Now, we have a pretty good track record, I think, at delivering the things that we talk about, because our strategy is very much driven by the market trends, the things that Peter was talking about, right? Which are driving the features that we're putting in the product, and also, the things that our customers need to do their business, right? So at a high level, the things that we're looking at in the next, 3 to 4 releases are on the data ops side. So data ops we have there with the Universal Data Mover Gateway. You'll see some new protocols. You'll see some features for self-service file transfers, okay? So that, that exciting new product that we've released to the market this year, you'll see that grow, and you'll see the features be enhanced as we go through that, through its product lifecycle. So workload analytics is still a very important topic for us. We're going to see some features around things like the report and dashboard promotion, so that when you build these definitions, you can move them between your environments, so you can embed them in your test environment and then promote them out to the different environments. We're going to enhance quite significantly the forecasting in the product, and we're going to add some workload simulation or workload execution simulation options. You'll see more of that as we kind of go through that, but the ability then for you to do sort of a little bit more what-if scenarios, to look at how would things expected to run based on me changing certain things in the environment, not actually going out and executing anything, okay? And we're going to add some Gantt timeline reporting to the product as well in various different areas. And you'll see that come in phases over the next few releases. So something else that we've been looking at and talking about for some time, and we've had sessions on this in previous Stone Branch Online, is jobs as code, the DevOps part of the workload automation or the service orchestration, right? And we have had for some time a lot of different components or pieces that if you put them together in the right way, you can do a DevOps deployment with jobs as code, okay? So what we're doing now is we're looking at this as a solution. Okay, so we're going to take those pieces and we're going to provide a documented solution with best practices. So we're going to go through this soup to nuts and give you advice on the different aspects and the different choices you have as to how to integrate this into your software repositories, whether you're using Git or whatever, right? So that's going to be something you're going to see, and we'll iterate over that over the next few months. And so we'll see that, hopefully something initial on that fairly quickly, all right? So going forward, obviously, we've got some big architecture things on our plate. And actually, some of this is already in progress. We've already started it, but they're big slices of work. So it'll take us some time to get them and complete them. We're looking at an OMS replacement, okay? So the messaging that we do between the agents and the controller is going to, at some point in the future, be replaced by a new component. So we'll see more of that as we go forward. You can imagine that's a fairly big project and fairly far-reaching. So, we're going to take our time and make sure that that is rock solid before we bring it to market. And you'll probably have the choice to run the existing OMS solution in conjunction with whatever new thing we put out there, okay? We're also very heavily looking at our goal is to get to zero downtime upgrades, okay? Whether we can or not is undetermined at this point. But we've kicked off that project. We've got the research going on. We've got some initial results, and there are some changes that we will be making that will help with that. But the goal, if we can get there, is to have zero downtime upgrades so that you can be completely 24/7, running and upgrading and all that good stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But that, again, will be a fairly long-term project that you'll see come in, okay? And, the embedded integration. So in 2016, we invented the universal task, which I think has been very much a game changer for the way that we deliver integrations within the product. And we've seen that be, extended. In 2019, we had the first iteration of the marketplace. We then introduced universal extensions. Universal events came around earlier this year. Last year, we had the integration hub, and we have plans to have more of an app store type environment and more closely integrated into the product. So you'll see that your ability to find and consume the integrations you need will become much, much easier, much, much slicker within the environment. So you'll be able to see that come into the product over the next few releases there, okay? And of course, there are a number of areas that are always continued areas of focus, the cybersecurity, the secrets management, that is ongoing. We obviously always need to keep our eye on, making sure that our infrastructure is rock solid, but we're also monitoring the different trends and applications that people are using, the way that you need to manage your security to make sure that we comply in those environments. Product integrations, again, that's something we have 3 different groups of people that are producing these, and that's just internally. We have customers that are doing these, and we have some partners that are showing really strong interest in helping us produce integrations for their tools. So, this is something that, again, if you have something you need to orchestrate, we should be able to find integration, or we should be able to get to build and get it to you relatively quickly, okay? And the user experience is an ongoing thing. One of the next areas of focus is going to be look at the self-service side of that, as well as the ongoing, shall we say, growth of the user experience. We'll also see some new capabilities coming in different areas and different ways through the environment there. Okay. So last year we had this slide up and we talked about where we were today or where the product's been, in terms of the components we have with the data mover components, the agent technology, the universal controller. And, the key to delivering service orchestration was to add the integration hub, the integrations and workflows, the developer platform SDK. This was kind of the goal. Well, we've got there. Yesterday is, or tomorrow is today. That integration hub is there. It's up and running. It's live. The integration workflows, we have there. The developer platform SDK is there. Will be enhanced, and we'll hear a little bit more about that when we talk about the new features in the product, but all those things. So basically now we have that platform basis to leverage that universal automation engine foundation that we have to solve all the specific automation needs that you may have in your environment, depending on what platform infrastructure you're using, what software as a service applications you're using, what in-house applications, whatever it is, that we can do those integrations, that we can orchestrate all of those for you, and being able to do that in a rapid and robust fashion within the environment. So that kind of concludes the strategy roadmap session here, and I'd like to thank everyone for your attention and encourage you to review the agenda for the following sessions. We have 2 sessions a week for the next few weeks. I think review them and sign up for those. I think you'll find a lot of the sessions are going to be very interesting and very valuable to you. But I wish everyone a good day, whatever time zone you're in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Giuseppe, Peter, and Colin. Before we say goodbye, I want to remind everyone that this was only the first of 11 sessions. Our next session is on Thursday, October 6th. We will have industry experts from HCA Healthcare, Acmea, and Stone Branch, where we will discuss the 5 practical ways to automate jobs in a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, and containerized environments. To register for that session or for more details, follow the first link in the comment box. If you'd like to register for the entire series with one registration form, follow the second link. I want to say thank you for joining us today. When you exit this session, you will be given the opportunity to take a short survey. Thank you again, and we will see you on Thursday.